So hi everyone, again, to introduce myself, my name is Irina Levin and I am the director of the Critical Languages Institute and associate director of the Melikian Center. I'm very pleased to be here today with our guest, Katarzyna Winiarska. She was just here at Arizona this past year in person, and it was wonderful to have her and to have her speak to the students at Barrett. And I know that members of our Melikian community were able to join us for that event as well. But we're very lucky that she agreed to come back virtually and talk to us about her work. Katarzyna is a Polish public historian, and she's currently a PhD student at the Doctoral School of Social Sciences at the University of Warsaw. She's also, she's an educator and the curator of the Virtual Museum of the Jews of Bialowieza, and I recommend that you all check out that fascinating website and make your way through the virtual museum. The link to the website is on the flyer that you've received. And she'll be talking about the rich and varied work that she does to recover and include the memories of local Jews into local narratives of the Polish-Belarusian. I'm from Belarus, so I really need to include that part, borderlands, and the very complex past of this region. So again, I really want to thank Katarzyna for being here with us today, and I will turn it over to her. So thank you.
Thank you, Irina, and hello to everybody. I'm very happy that I can speak to Arizona people again, and not only from Arizona. So Zoom made some opportunity to us. Even it's a pity that I'm not visit Arizona again in real. The main topic of my presentation is my work on researching the history of Jews in Bialowieza while using oral history as a research method, and also storytelling as a method of include Jewish history into social memory. Before I start talking about my research and activities, I should tell you a little bit about the history of Bialowieza so that you can understand the specificity of this place. So I try to share the presentation. Okay. Okay, it's okay. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay, so okay, so Bialowieza is well known for the Bialowieza forest. It is the last remaining primeval forest found on the European plain, a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site. The fact that Bialowieza is situated in the forest is important. Bialowieza forest was the Polish kings and great Lithuanian princes and then Tsars hunting area intended only for them, and for years it was forbidden to settle in this area. The first mention about the settlement in Bialowieza came from the end of the 17th century. Today, Bialowieza is located in northeastern Poland, near the border with Belarus. But it's important to remember that until 1918, Bialowieza was not part of Poland. Until 1795, Bialowieza belonged to Great Duchy of Lithuania. However, from 1559, both these countries, Great Duchy of Lithuania and Poland, were joined in a union called Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The main inhabitants at that time were East Orthodox people, speaking a kind of Russian language. In 1795, due to the partition of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth by the Russian Empire, Prussia and Austria, Bialowieza was incorporated into the Russian Empire. Till the breakout of World War I, Bialowieza was in Grodno Governorate. Thus, for the Bialowieza community, the main points of reference were the closest town, Szereszewo, and the county town of Prużany. You can see it here, Szereszewo and Prużany. And Białowieża is marked with a red dot on all of these maps I show you. When Jewish people started to settle in Białowieża, they came from that east direction, mainly from Szereszewo, Prużany, and Grodno. The Russian Tsars stayed in Białowieża until the First World War. During the First World War, Białowieża was occupied by the German Empire, and only after the war finished, Białowieża started to belong to Poland for the first time in its history. The other part of Grodno Governorate was also incorporated into Poland, yet the administrative division changed, and since that moment, Białowieża belonged to the Białystok Voivodeship, Bielsk Podlaski, and Białystok became the main towns with which Białowieża began to be associated. During World War II, Białowieża was under the Soviet occupation till June 1941, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union. The German army merged into Białowieża on June 27, 1941. Białowieża became a part of a new administrative unit, the district of Białystok, Bezirk Białystok, and was incorporated into East Prussia. After the Second World War, there were new borders set in Europe and in Poland as well. The Białowieża forest was divided among Poland and Belarus. Białowieża stayed in Poland, but the bigger part of the forest and towns Szereszewo, Prużana, Grodno were incorporated into Belarusian Soviet Socialistic Republic. So the history of Białowieża stands out in comparison to the rest of Poland. Białowieża wasn't a part of Poland till 1918. Its history differed from the central part of Poland, and after the World War II, the towns which had been important in Białowieża's history, also in the Holocaust history, were incorporated into another country. All the factors are the reasons for which the researchers do not focus on history of Jews in Białowieża and surrounding border towns. How did I start my journey to these Jewish stories? In 2002, I moved from Warsaw, when I was born, to Teremiski, a small village close to Białowieża, with the idea to help create an informal educational institution, the Common University in Teremiski. Among other things, I was in charge of running an intercultural educational program for the students. Jewish culture and history of the region were an integral part of it. Very soon, I realized that very little was known and written about the pre-war Jewish population in Białowieża. Okay. And after several years of living in this community, I understood that very little was also said about it. Jewish people did not exist in social memory. At a certain point, I started to realize that the remnants of the Jewish past were all around us. We learned that the building that housed our university, a former village school built after World War II, had been constructed out of the materials that one used to be the Jewish school in Białowieża. Then, in the yard of an old farmyard that I bought with my husband, we found a piece of a broken matzeva. As the years passed and as I grew to be a part of the Białowieża community, I felt the silent void that was left by the Białowieża Jews in the town more and more. It became clear to me that if did not address that void, nobody would. For this reason, I applied to the Ministry of Culture for a grant to elaborate on the history of the Jews of Białowieża. As it soon turned out, neither Polish nor international archives contained pre-war documents or any testimonies of the Jewish inhabitants of Białowieża. What I usually see while searching for Białowieża is no data. It was not even known what the path of the extermination of Jews from Białowieża was. In the few mentions of the Jews from Białowieża in several books, as well as in the English language encyclopedias, there were a lot of contradiction and even mistakes, as it turned out later. Despite the silence, in the social memory of Białowieża, I decided to talk to the oldest residents, and it soon turned out that the individual memory was a treasury full of names, surnames, addresses, and stories about everyday life with their Jewish colleagues and neighbors. Thanks to these names, I was able to start searching from the beginning. Another important source in the beginning was the database of Shoah victims' names in the Yad Vashem archives. There are names of about 100 people from Białowieża given by those who spent the war outside of Poland. They reported the names of their family members or friends who they knew had perished in Shoah. I combined the stories from old people from Białowieża with these testimonies and other documents I had managed to find. I also looked for the descendants of those who had perished and those who had given these testimonies. And finally, I found some descendants of the Jews from Białowieża. After a year and a half of my research, I created the first description of the history of Jews in Białowieża, which I published as a website called the Virtual Museum of the History of Jews in Białowieża, and also a profile at Facebook. Okay. The opening ceremony of the website, to which I invited the inhabitants of Białowieża, was an important moment of oral history impact. During the ceremony, I showed the website to the inhabitants and told them what I had managed to find out about the Jewish history of our town. So I used Białowieża's inhabitants' oral history to build the picture of this existence of Jews in Białowieża, but I also used storytelling to increase their awareness of this existence. One of the guests whom I had invited to the event was a descendant of the Lerenkind family from Białowieża. He also spoke to the audience, and it seemed to all of us that his voice was like a message from the pre-war time, a voice which confirmed that Jewish presence in Białowieża. This meeting caused an influx of other stories. People came to share their memories and recommended other old people with whom I could talk. What did I find out? Jews started to settle in Białowieża already in the first half of 19th century, when it belonged to Russia. Jews settled in the Stoczek village, which is the main street of Białowieża today. As Białowieża developed due to the building of the Tsar's Palace, you can see it now, and the railway, and due to the general development of the timber industry, a movement of migrant workers began. It results in the Jewish settlement in Białowieża. Jewish people settled there to trade. This is the contemporary map of Białowieża. It's not too big still. Around the year 1910, the wooden synagogue was built in Białowieża, but it was demolished by Germans during World War II and then dismantled in the 60s. No photo has been saved. That is a drawing made out of the memory of one of the inhabitants of Białowieża. There was also another private house of prayer on the same street after the war, built after World War I, and the building is still here. You can see the old and the contemporary picture. During the interwar period, Jewish children attended public school together with Polish and Belarusian students, and additionally they gained education in... Oh, something happened.
I'll fix that in 1 second, sorry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It was just someone who needed to mute themselves, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Just before World War II, the expanding Jewish community had built a big schoolhouse along with a mikvah. The rabbi from Białowieża, Kopel Kahana, became a well-known scholar in the UK. We can find his biography in the Encyclopedia Judaica. By the way, I learned about him because I found the name Sarah Kahana in the Yad Vashem database, who was said to be the wife of Rabbi. So I started to look for a Rabbi Kahana, and then I found his name in this Jewish encyclopedia. And I also found his letters sold on eBay with the stamp Rabbi of Białowieża. After my first visit in Arizona State University last October, I made a research in IVO, Institute for Jewish Research in New York, and I have found there a real treasure, 20 documents written by Rabbi Koppel Kahana of Białowieża to the Jewish organization in Vilnius, supporting the yeshivas in the eastern part of Poland. There, among others, there are a list of Jewish residents of Białowieża and other things. Jews in Białowieża dealt with retail trade and various crafts. They owned groceries and stores with hardware, textiles, gallantry, and also brasseries. They were tailors, blacksmiths, hairdressers, cobblers, butchers, and wood valuators. In the main street of Białowieża, there are still over 60 Jewish buildings, houses, and shops they once used. During the interwar period, Jewish youth strongly participated in the Zionist movement. Some of them emigrated to Palestine and work in kibbutzes. Their families still live there today. I have visited some of them. During World War II, a month and a half after Germans entered Białowieża on August 10, 1941, Germans executed 77 Jewish men and young boys at the former gravel pit in the forest. The others were deported to the ghetto in Kobryń and Prużany. Those from Kobryń were murdered by Germans in mass execution, probably in Brona Góra in 1942. Jews from the ghetto in Prużany in the beginning of 1943 were shipped to the German concentration camp in Auschwitz. 3 Białowieża Jews survived Auschwitz. Among them, there was Israel Malecki, who returned to Białowieża for 2 years and later moved to Israel, Leibel Feldbaum, who after the camp liberation joined his family in the USA, and David Waldshan. I found the name David Waldshan on an American list of survivors, but I couldn't find anything more about him. I looked for his descendants for a very long time. One time, I found a small genealogical tree where I came across a person named David Waldshan and his 3 children. I started searching the internet, Facebook, etc. I wrote emails to the people from the tree, but they didn't answer. A day before the ceremony of the opening the website of my museum, which I mentioned, I tried again and I Googled David Waldshan names one more time. And immediately I saw a photo of him and I realized that he was still alive. It was a website of an American photographer, Brian Marcus. The website is called Still Here, and there is a book Still Here now. And he just finished, just before my museum, he just finished his photo project with survivors and published it in the internet. I wrote an email to him asking to connect me with David, and in half an hour, I received an email from David. I was really shocked, even though it was just a day before the ceremony of opening of my museum. He managed to write some words to the audience at my request. Half a year later, I went to David in Michigan to record his story. It turned out it was the first time he told somebody about growing up in Białowieża and his Holocaust experience. The film of this interview is now available at my website, at the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw, and in Yad Vashem archives in Jerusalem. And it is the only testimony coming from Jew from Białowieża in the world. The more I went into the subject, the more I saw how little is known, how much the subject has not been studied by historians. The researchers' work began to pull me in more and more. Therefore, I try to work in 2 fields, conducting the research and continuing of bringing back the memory of Jews. Okay. An important element of rebuilding memory by storytelling is a play entitled Neighbors Who Are No Longer Here, which I staged with Joanna Trotz, a theater director, with participation of children and young people from Białowieża. The play is based on the stories of the Jewish population of Białowieża collected from the oldest residents of the town. We perform it regularly in Białowieża to revive the memory of Jews in Białowieża to those who have forgotten or who can't remember the pre-war time. We also perform in various locations in Poland, including the Polin Museum in Warsaw. Last year, I realized my idea of building a monument dedicated to the memory of Jews from Białowieża, and I organized the ceremony of unveiling the monument. It took place at the former gravel pit where 77 Jewish men and boys from Białowieża were executed on August 10, 1941 by the German police battalion 302. For decades, only Polish and Belarusian residents of this place were commemorated by Catholic and Russian Orthodox crosses and a monument in the shape of an eagle. Now, at last, there is also the monument commemorating Jewish people there. 30 descendants of Białowieża's Jews families residing in the USA and Israel came for the occasion of the unveiling the monument. Again, oral history was an essential element of their 3-day visit. At the monument, representatives of each family made speeches on behalf of their relatives. They were sharing stories about those who had been saved or who had emigrated because of the war, as well as about those who had stayed and died. For the first time, they also met one another, the descendants of various Białowieża's families. There was also a very emotional informal meeting of Jewish descendants and residents of Białowieża, during which local people spontaneously got up and shared their memories left by memories left by their parents. Summing up, I wouldn't have discovered the Jewish history of Białowieża without being able to use the memory of the inhabitants of Białowieża and oral history. On the other hand, I'm sure it's not possible to incorporate the history of Jews in Białowieża into social memory without storytelling, without sharing the memory to others. The weakness of the first part is that soon there will be no more people who remember the pre-war time. Some of the people I talked to in 2015 have already died. Consequently, the role of storytelling in the restoration process of the Jewish heritage has become more and more significant. Of course, such important signs of monuments or information board, which I also set up, are needed in creation of social memory. Now, with the monument and the board dedicated to the Jews in Białowieża, it is impossible to suppress the memory about the Jewish past. But it depends, I believe that it depends on oral history, whether the Jewish memory of Białowieża will become a part of ours. I continue my research on the Jewish history of Białowieża by preparing a PhD thesis at the Doctoral School of Social Science at Warsaw University. I want also to address the issue of the sociological problem of forgetting Jews in social memory on the one hand, and of ingraining Jewish presence in the individual memory on the other hand. And to try to describe the process of forgetting and the reason behind it. At the same time, I'm looking for an answer whether and how we can turn the process of forgetting around and make the Jewish memory an integral part of our common narration. If you have any questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Katarzyna. So let's, we can leave this up for a moment so that people, you know, can take down your information. Oh, okay. Well, we could also put it in the chat because I'm sure that people will absolutely want to know more. But we also have some time now to discuss and take people's questions. So somebody has already, there's a few ways that we can ask questions or that you can ask questions according to your preference. People can write questions in the chat, and then I'm happy to read them to Katarzyna and she can answer them. People can also use the raise hand function in Zoom to raise their hand and indicate that they want to ask a question. Or people can just, if you're on video, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I'll see you and you can ask a question that way. So our first question that's already in the chat is from Elaine Berkowitz, and she was wondering whether there are any people who are still, Jewish people who are still living in Bialowieza today.
If any Jewish people is still living now, no.
In Bialowieza? No.
No. No.
Right, so you were saying that most of the descendants were coming from the US or Israel. Can you say a little bit about that, their path out of Bialowieza?
Mm-hmm. I found mainly people in Israel and some in the United States, but also I'm in contact with the family of Rabbi Koppel Kahana I told about, and it's interesting because this family is in South Africa. South Africa in Kapstadt, and it's also a mystery story about this Koppel Kahana and why, and about this South Africa, because even though this Koppel Kahana survived because he left Białowieża in 30s to go for study in UK. So he survived and he died in 70s. We still don't know very crucial information about him. For example, where he was born, because there are many different sources of it, and it's also because of terrible Polish language. So in this encyclopedia, we can read that he was born in Eišišky, in Lithuania now, yes, but in his naturalization document in UK, we see Kupišky. And in Ellis Island archive, when he visited States, we see Olszyszki. So I don't know if you could hear the difference, Eišišky, Kupišky, and Olszyszki. But so this is the problem with names, with the name of Białowieża too, that it is difficult, and this many languages were used to to draw these names, and so it's really so sometimes it's really difficult to find out how it was. Yes, so and probably I think that probably he was not from Eišišky, but from Kupišky, which is also in Lithuania, and we know that the big society of Kupišky, of Jewish people from Kupišky, emigrated in 20s from Kupišky, from Lithuania to South Africa. So it is possible that that maybe it was Kupišky, not Eišišky. So yeah, and I know about some families in Argentina and also in Australia, but they didn't know much about their families in Białowieża. So very often it's like this, that these descendants ask me about their families. Yeah, so and I know much more than they.
Okay, so there's a question, and somebody, Sokolar says, thank you for your important work, and please remind us about the museum where we can see these items and the documentation of the Jews in the town, and where we can hear the oral histories you recorded. So I'll go ahead and put the link for the museum in the chat so that you can access it that way. Would anyone like to ask a question?
Oh, I would just make a comment. I don't know. I might have a question. I don't know. So I just wanted to say that to thank Kasia for her talk. I met Kasia because of a common interest in the Bialowieza region, because my grandfather came from another town on the other side of the forest, and they have a similar Narewka, which has a comparable history to Bialowieza, being in that same general region now in Poland. And I've been studying the history of Narevka for many years, where my grandfather came from. And I also have a website on Narevka. But what's interesting is that one thing that Kasia has on her website, but she did not mention, is that the Jews of Bialowieza were actually buried in Narevka. So
Yes.
there's a very close connection between the two towns. And one of the descendants from Bialowieza, who I met about 10 years ago when I was doing my website, he contributed some photographs of the Jewish cemetery in Narevka, including the gravestone, destroyed gravestone photograph of the destroyed gravestone of his great aunt. I mean, of a uncle with his great aunt and cousin standing next to it. And it was in the Narevka cemetery, but he descended from Bialowieza. So one of the things that it really intrigued me studying this region was that we think of Poland being a very Catholic country, but my friends who I have met in Narevka are actually Orthodox and even Baptists. There's a little Baptist church, so has a very different feeling from the rest of Poland, and Kasia can comment on that. It's so interesting for me, and so wonderful to see Polish people being so interested in the Jewish history. I mean, I came to being interested in the Polish history because my grandfather was one of those Jews who left and immigrated from that area. And he came, he has a complicated history, but I've been also researching the descendants from Narevka in the Jewish diaspora around the world. And it's very similar to Bialowieza.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Jewish people from Bialowieza use the Jewish cemetery in Narevka in this period between wars. But I'm nearly sure that that in the 19th century they were more connected to this Szereszewo and Prużany. And probably at that time they used these cemeteries where their families were stayed, so in Szereszewo and Prużany rather than in Narevka. Because everything changed, as I told you, in this period when Bialowieza and Narevka started to belong to Poland, and then there were another rules, also administrative rules were different.
Can you comment on how this area is somewhat different from the rest of Poland? I mean, you touched on it, but
yes, it's completely different, and it's why I talked about this different history. Yes, because and I underlined that it not used to be a Polish country before, and it's still you can feel it here all the time, because the main the Catholic people are the minority here in Hajnowski Powiat, yes? So in this Powiat where Bialowieza and Narevka is, so the more people here is Orthodox, Christian Orthodox, and you can see here mainly Orthodox churches, not Catholic churches. And for example, in architecture of Bialowieza town, in the center of Bialowieza is standing the Orthodox church, and the synagogue was a little bit closer to the center, and the Catholic church, who was the last sanctuary built in Bialowieza, is standing just in the end of the main street. It's and in this time when it was built, it wasn't even Bialowieza, yeah, it was on the border. So you can see it here in all these towns in Podlasie region.
Okay. Well, thank you. So other questions, please don't hold back. Don't be shy. Yes, Brian.
Well, first, I just want to thank Katarzyna for her great talk and all the work you've been doing on this project. Your work immediately made me think of, even though this was about 20 years ago, but when the book Neighbors by Jan Gross was published about the massacre in the village of Joebna, I'm curious if you could talk maybe a little bit more, since you already kind of touched on it, but some of the challenges and maybe potential future opportunities for returning this kind of Jewish voice into Polish history, which it seemed that book, when it came out 20 years ago, Neighbors, and published in Poland, started a bit of a controversy about questions about responsibility and identity in Poland. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's hot subject all the time in Poland, and yeah, and now even it's more hotter than when the Gross published his book, because now there are a big group of researchers who published a lot of books about our responsibility in Holocaust, Polish people. Yes, so the subject is very hot, and the Gross book was only the first in this stream of these terrible testimonies which we can now read. And of course, when I started to ask in Białowieża to talk about Jewish history in Białowieża, I was afraid of what I can hear from the people and what will be the reaction. But it turned out that here it's a quite different region than Jedwabne, because Jedwabne now it's also in Podlasie, but historically it's not Podlasie. It's different. It was different part, and there were the Catholic Church was very active there, and also nationalistic Polish nationalistic parties groups, and here because of this. Differences between people, because of this mix of Polish, Christian, of Orthodox people, about Baptist and so on. And here also were, Belarusian people, Russian people, Polish people, and Jewish. It's a more safety situation than when you have, polarized, that you have only Jewish and Polish. So it make the situation more so not so tragic. Yeah, but it's not. It's hot subject in all over the Poland still. So.
Thank you. So again, we're ready to take more questions, but I, even having seen this presentation before, I'm always like completely amazed by the work that you do with the children, putting on that play. So if you can tell us a little bit more about that aspect of your work, what it's like to work with these children from Bialowieza, right? Or and what comes up for them while you're doing the play, and how do you approach working with the children from Bialowieza?
Now my work a little bit changed, because I left Białowieża 2 years ago, because I come back with my family to Warsaw to give my children opportunity to go to good secondary school in big town, not in the city. Yes. So it's more complicated to work here. And also the group of children, they are not the children now, they are young people. Some of them are in the secondary school too, in many different places, not in Białowieża, so in Hajnówka, in Białystok. And this is a problem to meet together, and but I hope that this close group, this small group of this group from the performance, I think we can meet and play the performance you know, if we want to do it in one moment, yes, because we are so close, and they are so touched with these stories, and they feel the stories like theirs, yes. So but when I was living here for 15 years in Białowieża, I was working with children even in kindergarten and in primary school, not only on this Jewish subject, but I organized many different cultural activities for them and many different workshops. So it was also the way it was possible to invite them to this Jewish history. Yes, it was not like this, that I came one day and say, okay, now you should know something about Jewish people. No, it was only one subject of many others, and it was, and they knows me, their families knows me for many years, and so it's very good situation when you started to work with such kind of subject like memory, that you have you know, contact, and you know the society, the people there very good, and you are not the foreigners. Yes, so I think it was the most important in my work then. But as I said, now it's a little bit complicated because I live in Warsaw.
We had a question from somebody in the chat who said that his relatives, this is from Michael Fox, he says, our relatives came from near Bialowieza. Were the towns of Shereshev and Plonsk similar?
Oh.
Shereshev and?
Plonsk?
Plonsk.
Płońsk, but Płońsk is near Warsaw, so not Płońsk.
Okay. I only know what's in the chat.
Can I see a chat or not?
Yes, if you click on chat, you'd be able to see it as well. I mean, but it's spelled.
Okay, yes, okay, I see it.
Where is it?
As you said, spellings in Polish, they're very difficult. So.
Where is the post?
If you scroll up.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's new.
Yeah.
But
sorry, this was sent to me privately, so I'm gonna copy it.
Okay.
Chat for everyone. I didn't realize that. Okay, here's what it was.
Yeah. Płońsk, but Płońsk is in other part of Poland, or maybe it's other Płońsk. There's very often you have you know, similar the same name in different part of Poland, but Płońsk, which I know, it's in different part of Poland, not in Podlasie. Shereshev or Szereszów is this town from which Jewish people to Białowieża came. So it's very close, but now on the Belarus side.
Were the towns similar then? You know, as far as tradespeople and
Białowieża and Szereszew, yes, they are very similar. I visited Szereszów, and you know, there are the same architecture of wooden houses, and but Szereszów was bigger and is bigger still.
Okay, thank you very much.
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wrote it on there, but I must not be able to see it. I don't know what I'm doing. I wanted to know if the town that Joy talked about, I can't pronounce it. How far is it? What?
Narewka.
How far is it from Bialowieza? And are there Jews still in that town at all?
In Narewka, no. There are many Jewish people in small towns in Poland. There are quite, you know, not big, but there are Jewish societies in Poland, but in cities. In Warsaw, in Łódź, in Gdańsk, in Białystok even, very small, but also in Białystok, but in Lublin, of course, but not in small towns.
Thank you.
We've got some other questions in the chat. And a question about, you know, your research now. I guess, like, you know, what are you working on for the thesis? Can you talk a little bit more about that, or if you're just kind of continuing to focus on Bialowieza, or if you're looking at other parts of this area as well?
No. I focus on Białowieża, and yes, and I, as I told, I try to also, because I'm on sociological studies in my and social science, doctoral school of social science. So you know, there is also this part of my PhD thesis. So I will be writing. I'm going to write about this problem of memory and why we forgot this history. Yes, so how it happened, and why, and how people, and also what. It's very interesting for me. Not only what people, I will be analyze all these memories that people shared with me. I have a lot of recording, and it's very interesting for me to analyze not only what they are remember, but also how they talk about it. Yes, and to understand not only this thinking about Jewish people now, but to understand how this Jewish, Polish, Belarusian word look like then. Yes, because we can find in language and some way of thinking coming from that time. So it will be a part of my PhD thesis. But I'm on the beginning of this sociological problem. So,
could I just respond to the other person's question? Yeah, once all the Jews were killed during the war, and in Narevka, they were killed a few days after the Jews of Bialowieza, or sent out to a ghetto and then killed. There were no Jews there, but today, many descendants keep returning to see the town, and many of us have linked up as well through, so, you know, there were societies of these towns in the major cities, like New York had a Narevka society, and in Israel. And it's interesting how the descendants of those societies are now meeting each other.
Nice.
Yes, and we have guest here Jagoda Szkarłat, who is my friend, and she is from Forum for Dialogue. This is the organization in Poland who are looking for people like me. So, you know, people working on the memory in small towns in Poland. There are really about Jagoda, 100 people now with us, gathered together. We know each other, and Forum for Dialogue organize meeting for us, and also organize contact descendants with us. Yes, so if somebody are looking for some contact in the place where they families came from, it's a good contact it's a good way to contact to Forum for Dialogue, because they know a lot of people working on memory in all over the Poland, even like small towns like Narewka and Białowieża and others, and they can contact people to people. So, and you know, both sides are very happy then, not only these descendants, but also our activists.
Białowieża, I've been there, so I can assess that it's a very interesting place to visit. And what's interesting to me is too that it has a large hotel, so there are conferences held there. So it's a nice place to go for a conference, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you know, Białowieża is well known because of the forest. So, you know, there are some scientists institution in Białowieża because of the forest and the, you know, all these nature things. So there are a lot of people from all over the Poland and all over the world coming here, and many conferences organized in this subject. Yeah.
Okay. I have 3 quick questions. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me if they've already been answered. That Narika that Joy talked about and Bialowieza, I'm terrible with this. How far apart are they? How many miles? Because she said the cemetery from one town was in the other town. Are they far?
No, it's not far. Through the forest is 15 kilometers.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you said in the beginning, two things. How you became interested in writing about the Jews, and are you Jewish, may I ask?
No, I'm not Jewish.
And how did you take an interest in this?
I tried to explain this, how I start. I simply feel that, you know, it's something that is something which used to be in Bialowieza, yes, that if you know a little bit about the Polish history and Jewish history in Poland, you know, you enter a town and you know in the moment that there is some empty place and empty stories, and that is silence in social you know, speaking, yes. So I started to feel it, yes, and it make me, you know, to question myself why we don't know nothing, and I started to discover the subject, and then it started to be more and more important for me. And well, I think, you know, that because my children born here, yes, and it is quite a new. I'm from Warsaw, but they are from here, from Bialowieza. So I feel that if they, I started to discover this subject for them, yes, not for Jewish people, because at the beginning I think that it's impossible that I can find anybody from Bialowieza, from Jewish people. But I was thinking that it's also our history, yes, that if we would like to live here and feel that this is our place to live, we have to know everything about this place. Yes, not that we, you know, it's something we need truth. Yes, and
well, as a Jewess, I thank you very much.
History is the same. It's also our history.
Thank you.
Okay, so I put the dialogue, the forum for dialogue link in the chat in case people were interested. I think that's correct. Mm-hmm. Can you confirm that that's right, Yagoda? Is that good?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, thank you for being here. And we also had a question about someone who was born and grew up in Cape Town, and was wondering if you knew of the relatives of Rabbi Kahana who still lived in Cape Town. If you're in touch with them, I guess they're interested in getting in touch.
Uh-huh.
So are you in touch with the relatives in Cape Town?
Yes, I'm in touch, but they are not very, they didn't know, they don't know much about it, yes, because they are also not in the straight line from Koppel Kahana. So yeah, we are in touch, but you know, not many things it adds to my work, unfortunately.
Okay, any other questions? And we're drawing to the end of our time here. Oh, okay, Daniel.
I'll be 1 minute less. Just since we talked, actually, I've also gotten entreaties about moving to Belarus, just so you know. I just wanted to thank the speaker tremendously, and just allow me, because I am the son and grandson of Holocaust survivors, actually from Lvov, who are hidden in Busko Zdrój in Poland. And just this may be interesting. My mother, who I'm staying with now in New York while I read out the pandemic, she was hidden by her own grandmother and brought up as a Christian to protect her identity. So she was taught to hate Jews. So she hated Jews, and when she moved to England at age 11 and they told her she was Jewish, she had a nervous breakdown. But just, if you've been to the Holocaust Museum in DC and you've seen the booth of a lady with a toy bear, if anybody remembers that, that's my mother. And an author heard her story and wrote a book 5 years ago. Here it's called That's My Mother, Such Good Girls, The Journey of the Holocaust Hidden Child Survivors. And it unexpectedly 5 years ago went to #1 on the New York Times e-fiction ebook nonfiction bestseller list for 1 week. But so that's just, if anybody's interested, it's called Such Good Girls. So I don't want to, but I just want to, so when people like you, and I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, Katarzyna?
Yes.
Okay, when you, and I heard Polish in my home growing up. So when you do these kind of things, I superbly support you and greatly appreciate your efforts. And I haven't been to Poland, but I certainly hope to visit one day. So thank you very much. And thank you, Irina, for having this presentation.
Of course, yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing this story. Thanks.
Okay. So there's a lot of other lovely things written in the chat, but I just want to read Monique's. Monique Larry, she's a student in our Persian program, but she thanks you for your wonderful work and presentation and says that you're an inspiration for her 11-year-old who is a World War II history aficionado. So inspiring the next generation of historians and oral historians as well, I hope. So we're at our hour mark, and we really want to thank Katarzyna again for her incredible work, which, you know, is partly detective work, partly, you know, this work of sitting down with people and helping them kind of, you know, put their own memories to work, you know, about things maybe they haven't thought about in a long time. I know as an anthropologist, right, talking about these issues with people is also not easy. It brings up a lot of emotions and just, you know, very difficult memories that people have to bring up. And certainly your interview with Walcham, is that right?
Walcham, yeah.
Walcham is something that I definitely, last time I told myself I needed to see it, but this time I'm definitely going to. I mean, I hope that everyone here also takes a look at that. So I just want to thank again, Katarzyna, for, you know, for sharing your work with us and for doing the work in the first place. So my applause. And
thank you.
Thank everyone.
Thank you very much for coming and for invitation. It was a pleasure for me to talk about Jewish history to the people from all over the United States. So thank you.
And we wish you the best of luck in your PhD work, as you know that's a long road.
Thanks.
Okay.